All right. Hey, everybody. We are back with Prison Break with Shirley Ann.
Shonda.
And we are here back on Prison Break Live. And we have some very special guests in the house and a very special commissary that we're going to do today. But first, we are going to give our disclaimer. So give me just a second. But our disclaimer is the thoughts and views expressed on this show are those of the host, guests, and callers. They are not necessarily those of KRGN 98.5 FM, its management, or its sponsors or underwriters. KRGN 98.5 FM holds no responsibility of the validity or accuracy of the information on this show. Shout out to our program managers, Mr. and Mrs. Ron and Mimi Grace, our office manager, Mrs. Jade Allen, and our KRGN spiritual overseers, Pastor and First Lady Rodney and Karen Gilchrist. And tonight, y'all want to hold on to y'all seats as we have a special rendition of Prison Break that is going to be airing right now, as you can hear, and also throughout the week. And so tonight we want to be talking about respected husbands, and we have two very special guests, Mr. Aaron Boone, who was back with us from last week, and Mr. Rodrick Jones. So welcome both of you on to
Pleasure
Prison
to be
Break.
here.
Good to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So, Shonda, so we want to break off into this a very special. I'm not gonna say announcement because we want to make it as seamless as possible. Well, we know how mothers are celebrated all year round, and we throw them shout outs, and we come as Mr. Roderick was talking about how in the stores right after Christmas they throwing out stuff for Mother's Day and Valentine's Day. They do all of those things in advance. But when it comes to our fathers, when it comes to the people who help us bring these beautiful beings onto the earth, we wait to the last minute to celebrate them, and we want to change that. We want to make sure that they know that they are very important to us as a society. Y'all are important to us. Without y'all, we wouldn't be here. We need y'all. So we want to shout out some very special fathers, dads in the house. Maybe you want to shout out your own, and so it's not too late to do that. But Shonda, go ahead and start off with the list that you were provided with for your shout outs for dads.
Yeah, so we have been asking you guys for over a month now to give us your names of dads who are really killing it, who are doing what they're supposed to be doing, who are taking care of their kids, and they're doing it without asking for any applause or accolades, just because they just want to be good dads. And so we wanted to give them credit. Of course, we believe in giving credit where credit is due, but we want to do a little bit more than what we normally do. So we want to make sure that we shout them out on this evening. So I've gotten some names. So tonight I want to give them up. The first one I'm going to give up is, of course, my own husband, because he's an amazing dad. So Mr. Kenneth R. Curb Jr., I don't know if you're watching right now, babe, but we're shouting you out because you are an amazing dad, not only
Yes.
to your kids, but to all of your bonus babies as well. The next name that we have was submitted by Mr. DeAndre Bills. And Mr. DeAndre Bills was also one of the people whose names was submitted by somebody else. So DeAndre Bills, you have been submitted for killing the game. That shout outs to you for being a great dad and for handling your business. The third name that we want to shout out tonight was submitted then by Mr. DeAndre Bills, his friend, Mr. Nate Hester. So, Mr. Nate Hester, thank you so much for all it is that you do for your children. Somebody wanted you recognized on today, so we are recognizing you. And the last name that was submitted by my family, was Pastor Gilchrist. So thank you so much,
Awesome.
sir, for all that you do for not only your children, but for your spiritual children as well, and for all that you do for Liberty Christian Center and for the community. Pastor Gilchrist, we are shouting you out as being one of our outstanding dads. Thank you for killing the game. And the last two dads were not submitted, but they are
Mhm.
on here on this evening, and I
Yes.
have seen them in action with their children. So Mr. Rodrick Jones, thank you so much for being an outstanding dad. Thank you
I'm,
Yes.
so
I'm
much for
wow.
all that you do. And Mr. Aaron Boone, thank you so much for what it is that you do. We have heard your testimony about your situation and your level of understanding with your own dad and how that has shaped you to be an amazing dad. So thank you so much for all it is that you do. So those are our names for this week. Remember, you can still submit more names. You can still submit other fathers. We know that there's more men out there who are doing what it takes, who are the shiny example in their homes, and we want you to be recognized. So keep submitting those names. You can hit us up on our Facebook page, Prison Break with Shirley and Shonda. You can inbox us. You can hit us up on our phone numbers. You can even call down to KRGN and submit those names anytime that you like. That's all I got, Shirley.
All right, thank you so much, Shonda. You know, I have to shout out a few people myself.
Absolutely.
Can't let the day go by without doing so. And so I want to shout out the father of my two children. I want to shout out Mr. Joe Latour. Thank you for bringing life, and I'm hearing an echo again. Thank you for bringing life to our daughter, Miss Valina. Thank you so much for your presence in her life. I also want to shout out Mr. Trayvon Sanders, my son's father, for being an incredible dad. You know, sometimes we make mistakes in life, and we don't always do things perfect, and so we feel like we don't deserve it. But I want to tell you, sir, that you do. I want to tell you thank you for all that you've done for our son, and just being there. So no matter what the past may have been, you are still an incredible father. So thank you. I want to shout out to my own father for raising 6 children, for being there with us, for encouraging us, for showing me the entrepreneurial spirit. Thank you for being in my life and for showing me the way. So thank you, Dad. I also want to shout out Mr. Ronnie Russell. Thank you for being an incredible father. I've seen you through the trenches and doing the things that I see you on social media and doing the things that you do. Thank you for being an incredible father and an incredible person. Thank you to Mr. Tavares Besso. I've heard your testimony of being a single father and taking on your children, because we don't most times talk about single fathers. We talk about single mothers a lot. But when a single dad steps up to the plate and takes on the responsibility of caring for his children, that is a very special thing. So I want to shout out all of our single fathers on today. And so next week we will, of course, shout out some more fathers. No one's perfect, and we know that. And so we want to make sure that you know that you are important. All right, Ms. Shonda, I think I'm gonna give it over to you to just to kind of introduce respected husbands and how we came about this topic. Go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, so Shirley and I, as you guys know, we've been doing Prison Break for some time, and I think it started when we started talking about submission and what submission means in December. And we really began to have candid conversations about the way that men were treated and portrayed. And so Shirley and I really have a heart for not only for men and for their position, but really for the things that God has a heart for. And so we just feel like just overall as a people, as a society, as a nation, globally, that men are not treated with the respect that they deserve. And we really wanted to change that narrative, because you guys are really more important than what most people will say or think. When it comes to like things like Mother's Day, fathers are really put into the backdrop. All of the cartoon shows that you watch these days, if there is a man featured on the show, he's silly, or he doesn't handle his business, or they're not married. And we just really feel like men have gotten a bad rap. They are not celebrated. They're not supported. They're not loved like they should be. There's no position for them. Society really takes women and puts them on a pedestal, tries to push them out front. And it's really bad within the Black community. They'll push them out front, and they'll put the narrative out there that women run the world, women winning. And women winning is wonderful, right? But there is a space where our men are supposed to be, and they are really overshadowed by what it is that's being done in society with pushing the woman forward. And we want to change that. We want to give men back their place. We want women to step back into the spot where God had them to be, not that they're less than, right? But there's a space where men are supposed to be that has been neglected, and they've pushed other things there. And we want everything to be in its rightful place according to the way that God has designed it, not necessarily to the way that we view it or the perspective that we have. So we really wanted to have a conversation with some men today who we knew and who we trusted, who really are the kings in their home and who are good examples of what it means to be a godly father, and really just chat with you guys about what it takes to be that and to do that, and how you guys feel about this divide that's been created between men and women. We really just want to have this candid conversation with you guys, and allow men to really get back into their proper positions. So that was kind of the thought process that Shirley and I had behind this particular segment and the whole June segment of fathers and husbands, really just giving you guys back that platform. So that was one of the reasons why we invited you guys on here today. So I really want to start with introductions, because we had Mr. Boone on the show last week and the week before that. So we kind of really remember you, Aaron, but we really want to give Mr. Rodrick Jones an opportunity to introduce himself and let everybody know who he is for all of our viewers, and for people who are listening. So Rodrick, I'm going to toss it to you.
First of all, thank you so much, Shonda. For the listening audience, my name is Rodrick Jones. I am one of the founding members of Exquisite and Elegant Designs. We're an events company. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. And as I was kind of joking around with Shonda, whom I've known for a long time, I'm pretty laid back and I'm very, very quiet and shy. Just kidding. But I'm absolutely honored to be on this program, especially when we talk about respected husbands. Everything that Shonda kind of echoed is kind of like something that I talked to her about kind of before everything started, not knowing that was the topic. But it's really true how women are pushed out on the forefront. But I think as a man, there's a lot of things that has changed over the years, and I'm pretty sure we'll talk about this as we go forward. So let me kind of just stick to my little intro. That's not long again. We basically own a business here in Killeen. I actually own a couple of businesses. I'm a husband, dad, I'm a father, and trying to juggle all these things can be challenging. And I'm pretty sure as we continue to talk, you'll find out a lot more about me. But I don't want to take up a whole lot of time with the introduction, but that's pretty much it for me. I'm pretty simple.
All right. And Mr. Boone, if you'll just say hey to everybody, you can give a recap of your intro if you like, for anybody who may have missed the show before. We don't want to deny you that opportunity. So you can jump on in there and say your heys and your shout outs and what you do. And if you could talk a little bit about what you've been involved with over the last week, that would be awesome too. You're still muted, sir. There you go.
Okay, thank you. My name is Aaron Boone. I first want to pass it back to Shonda and Shirley. Thanks for having me back. I enjoyed myself last week and the week before, so it's kind of like family now. So, and Shirley, we went to school together, so already had that connection. And then Rodrick, nice to meet you, sir. But yeah, I'm just a regular, pretty regular guy, trying to live the best way I can, be the best dad I can, best husband I can. I'm a business owner. I also deal in partnerships, with different businesses. Also, right now, trying to branch out to my daughter and her entrepreneurial avenue lane. We'll be launching something for her next month with her YouTube page and clothing line and stuff like that. So those are some things that we're having like in the works. I have not let that out of the bag, but there it is right there. So a little tidbit. And other than that, a lot has been going on, obviously, with the protests and things of that nature. And basically, I'm just doing the best of my ability to be a bridger and be a connector, not an attacker of people with different views and stuff like that. But basically, we know that certain things has to change. So I'm a part of that process. So and bringing systematic change. So
Good stuff. Awesome. So we want to start off this dialogue Whichever person would like to answer. Shonda, do you have a question for them or you want me to jump right in?
No, you got it, Shirley. Jump right on in. I'll
All
get in
right.
where I'll fit in later on.
So we want to kind of just talk about, first of all, because we cannot ignore the things that are going on in our world today, and being in the position that we're in, and just being able to get along with the people that we don't necessarily agree with, or we don't necessarily have the same lifestyle as. You, as two Black men, where do you see, first of all, in the home, how can you, as a husband, how can you prepare your family for the things that we see now in a godly manner? Don't both of y'all jump in at
I,
once.
I give it to Roger. I give it to Roger.
How to prepare my family for basically what's going on. I think right now it's incredibly important to be a man of prayer, especially in this moment, because right now prayer will definitely reach places that I may never tread upon physically, and it's important for the head of the household to have that link with God, and basically get that download from God, and then be able to have a conversation, a real conversation with my wife and my children. I have two sons and a daughter, and it's frightening. You know what I'm saying? To know that right now my sons are in different cities. One's in San Antonio, one's in Houston, and just everything that's going on with how Black men are under attack, especially from we see what's going on with law enforcement, things of that nature. Um, it's very important to have that conversation, let them know what they need to do, just in case they get pulled over by the police, since that's what's first and foremost on everybody's radar right now. And the sad thing though is what I tell them is, even though you can do the right things, you still have to be a man of prayer too, and just pray that God is with you, because your life is still could be at risk. Because you could get one person. We saw what happened in Minneapolis, and things could change. But I think the most important thing is that we have a dialogue with our children, let them know, set expectations for them. Don't put yourself in a position where you force somebody to make a judgment call, right? Because we already see what's played out before us in so many situations. So conversation is definitely the foremost thing that we need to have with our families, our wife, and our children.
All right, Aaron.
Um,
Thank
I,
you.
he kind of took the word part the intro out of my mouth when it comes to prayer. Um, Prayer is definitely the foundation, and I've always been taught and have experienced that prayer prepares. So
Mm,
it always prepares you for what's to come, as at least as much as possible. But not only does it prepare, but it also repairs. So it repairs like relationships. It repairs different connections, and then again it repairs sometimes as far as reconnects. So
hmm
and so those things are is like a foundational thing as far as we try to be in our house, when it comes to the different things and stuff like that going on. Another thing that I really try to stress for myself personally is do not panic.
Yeah.
Do not panic. Um, the peace of God has to rule and reign and abide in your heart,
hmm
because when you panic, it shows. It literally
hmm
shows in your actions, and you typically mess up when you panic. So because you react, you're only in a reactive state. You're not in a responsive state. And so that's one of the main things as far as our family. And another thing is, it may seem simple, but it's just act normal.
Yeah.
Like act normal. Um, just because all this stuff is going on doesn't mean that I have to, or we have to go outside and just be on the defensive.
hmm
And so, because that's going to make people scared of you, or that's
hmm
people intimidated by you. So act normal. And I probably even go out of my way. Like I was going to, I was grabbing something for my daughter yesterday, and there was a big group of like white women in the parking lot, and they had these lawn chairs, and they were out. And I just make it a point to just I just rolled my window down. I just said, y'all look like y'all having too much fun. Just stuff like that. And they just all bust out laughing. You just got to act normal. I mean, and not just kind of make a little extra effort though to show another side to people who may not even know, you know, what a black man, you know, how to encounter a black man or how to encounter a black family. And so just show them normal and say, hey, in a lot of ways, we are a lot like your family. Now, obviously, in a lot of ways, you're not, you know, but sometimes you got to be able to break down the guards of people in order to be able to connect.
That's real good. Go ahead, Shonda.
I was going to say, you guys both made very good points that prayer is your first response in the times that we live in. And then the second thing that you guys talk about is your dialogue, your conversation. So I know that for my family, we talk all the time. Like after Bible study is over, we'll have like an hour-long discussion, just kind of really talking about what was already talked about during Bible study. You know, when we see things on TV, you know, and the kids are there, you know, we'll have like really candid conversations with them about the things that they're seeing on the TV. But the other thing that I do know is that my children come home from school and they tell me that their friends don't have that same type of thing at home. So it's not widely known or widely practiced that men are having conversations with their family. But I want you guys to talk about how important it is to foster prayer and communication with your family as the father, the husband, or the lead of your family.
Could you rephrase that question one more time?
Yeah, if you could talk about the importance. We've already talked about how you guys need to be praying, but not just about this situation, but about all situations, how important it is to have prayer and dialogue with your family as the husband, the lead in your home.
Well, I feel like that's extremely important because as the head of the house, you kind of set a tone for your house, right? You know, you're kind of the orchestrator of the atmosphere, right? You know, and that could go both ways. It could be good or bad, because if you're not having good dialogue, if you're not positive with your family, you know, they're going to be impacted in a negative way. So what I try to do, you know, I try to live more by my actions than I do so much with words. Now, and I'm going to tread lightly when I say this, because for one of my sons, I can see the impact that it had versus the other one. You know, they needed a little more hands-on, you know, as opposed to they needed more of a verbal conversation than just watching me, right? But I think we have to be willing to, you know, live what we have to be who we are. You know, if you ever want to find out about somebody's household, you ask the kids. They'll be able to tell you up and down what's going on, you know. And so kids will always they'll always gravitate to you if you just be 100 with them. I got one of my sons is 25 and one is 18 years old. We just turned 19. Oh my God, he's about to be 20 in a couple of days.
Oh, wow.
Believe that. Yeah. So look, I don't lost track of the years, but what I found out about him, even, you know, as he's about to turn 20, is, you know, everything that we talk about. Sometimes I thought, well, he's not hearing me and he's not responding the way I wanted him to respond. And it just takes me back to the word of God, where there's a time, season, purpose for everything. Right. So I sowed a seed in a certain part of his life. Right. And I expected to see immediate results, but it wasn't that he wasn't listening. Right. I understand now, you know, as time continues to go on, that, you know, the seeds that I planted early on, they're going to produce the harvest later on. So it's not that he's not listening or wasn't listening. It's just that it's not time for that seed, you know, to really grow and produce fruit. And so I think that we have to be open to having that conversation and knowing that, you know, yeah, we have to teach it to them, but they may not get it then. Right. Bible says, train up a child in the way that he should go, when he's old, it won't depart from him. And I think the problem that I had early on, especially, was that I wanted to see immediate results when that's not necessarily what was needed, right? You still have to sow the seed. And so you have to sow that seed knowing that, when just what's going on right now in the world, especially with what's happening with all this police brutality, what have you, you got to just trust God. Trust God enough to know that, hey, I've taught my child. I've tried to live the best life I could live before him. And I find out with my 25-year-old, that he may not be on the path that I want him to be, but he's still in God's hands. And so that's why I say prayer is the way that I have to, stay before God with prayer concerning him. And the other kind of layer of that onion is I don't always bombard him with, what I don't like. And I think that's a mistake that my own father probably made with his children that I learned from, because if you always point the finger telling people don't do blah, 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 don't do, that's all they think, he's going to come at me with something negative. And so some things you just gotta, you talk to him and then you just leave it in God's hands through prayer. All right. But I think having that conversation and be willing to, allow the process to take place is key. And the last part of that, I think, is that, you have to be willing to listen to them. And I think one of the things that I felt like growing up as a young man, I didn't have a voice in my own house, even as a young man. And so if you don't have a voice, I think that pretty much that's one of the things that perpetuates silence in men today. If you never had a voice, then you never know to use your voice. And so that kind of puts a muzzle on you. So the older you get, if you've never had a voice, it's hard for you to come out and speak out. It's hard for you to even jump into a protest like we have going on right now if you've never felt like you've been heard. So I think it's important to not only to have the dialogue with our children, it's also important to listen, because right now they are the next wave, they are the next generation that's going to carry on. And so it's important to hear what's already on their minds, or what the thoughts that they already have about things like police brutality and some of the other issues that we face. So I think just being willing to not only hear, but to to be willing to take in what they're saying and not just on the surface. Think about it and then give them some constructive dialogue concerning what they've said.
That is so good. Thank you so much for those points. I actually had a conversation, pretty lengthy conversation with my son yesterday on our way back from Houston. So he's in a company, entrepreneur company as well, and I'm letting him spread his wings, so to speak. So he's 21, and I was asking him these questions of, his thoughts about certain things, and I can tell when I said something wrong, and he just shuts down. He'll just stop talking, like mid sentence. He's done. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I said the wrong thing. So how do I get him to open up again, give him his space so that he can be who he is and to be able to express himself? And so what he told me, even as being an entrepreneur, I said, Trayvon, I said, do you think I pushed too much in the entrepreneurial spirit and teaching you how to be your own boss? And so he began to share some things with me, and he said something about millennials, how if you tell them to do something and they were already thinking about doing it, but they weren't doing it right then, and you tell them to do it, it just makes them not want to do it. So they have this whole thing, let me do it in my own time and space.
Exactly.
Well, you know how we grew up. You do it when I said do it.
Exactly.
You drop everything and you do it right now. Why? Because I'm mama or I'm daddy, and I said so. But we have to kind of take that back a little bit and understand that the generation now, they not like us. So we have to learn how to parent them in a different way, or mentor them when they get to a certain age in a different way, so that they get the importance of it, and just to be open and honest with them. And I think that that's what, the voices that were taken away for them as children. I think when you said that, and not knowing how to go out and protest, I think that might be, they're speaking out now and it turns into a riot because they had all this pent up energy that they weren't allowed to release then. Can you speak on that? Because that just came to me. that it would turn from something that's peaceful into something else, but speak on it from a fatherhood and a husband standpoint.
Were you referring to me or Aaron?
Either or, it doesn't matter. Both.
Okay. So I think again, how I'll use my own personal situation, kind of put it on Front Street, as Shonda says quite frequently. I think what you've been exposed to throughout your life, it's going to show up, later on in life, especially if you don't deal with it, or get the, maybe counseling, or if you're not able to share that with your parents or somebody you trust. So as you were speaking, I was thinking about, so what makes one person choose the peaceful protest route versus one person choosing to, let's just riot and take everything, you know? I shared this with my wife. It's like, so maybe one of the there are obviously opportunists when it comes to the riot. So some people, oh, we just see the opportunity to jump in and destroy stuff, get some free stuff, let's do it. But then you have another person I was thinking about that probably thinking, well, this is the way for me to express my displeasure for what's going on, because I grew up in a household with domestic violence, right? And so one of the things that I said I would never do is bring that into my own family, if that makes sense, because I saw the effects that it has, the effects that it still now has on me as a 46-year-old man. And so that anger that I felt, over the years, I channel it in another direction. But what I've discovered is that, there's some people who don't know how to channel that, and so what they do is they do exactly what you said. They feel like, they have to express it some way, and this is how I'm going to do it, and that's through writing. That's just how I interpreted that, because I know it's a very real thing. When there's no place for you to exercise what you feel on the inside, you want to act it out. Sometimes that becomes the platform to do so. And I've witnessed it with my own eyes. I don't know about Aaron, and I'm probably sure he'll be able to tell you, his perspective on that. But I just feel like if you don't have that, again, if your voice is always silenced, if you never feel like you have a voice, and then you keep stuff pinned up and pinned in, and then you're under the influence of maybe not godly, counsel, what have you, it's going to come out in an unpleasant way.
Yeah. When you said that, Rodrick, I thought about the comment from Dr. King, and it's been circling on the internet. So it may not necessarily even be attributed to Dr. King at all. But I think he said that riots and violence are the language of the unheard.
Yes.
So with being down on the front lines, Aaron, this is for you. I know that you're seeing some of this kind of played out in front of you, and being down there with the protests and working with people who have some really, really strong feelings about what's going on right now. If you can kind of talk to those sentiments as well, because we're talking about it from a backyard perspective, but you're right down there on the front lines with everyone who's out there who's protesting in your particular neck of the woods. So can you talk about that cycle that we go through as people, where we're not heard when we're children, or we're not allowed to be participants in what's going on with ourselves when we're children, and then turning into an adult that has very, very strong feelings and reactions?
Um, it's so much I can go off of on this one.
Well,
You,
just take it away.
you gotta set an atmosphere to where confidence is accessible,
Hmm.
because one, most people don't grow up confident. Most people, they have to build it. They have to be taught it. They have to be taught the difference between confidence and arrogance. Uh, they have to be taught, how to hone it, how to harness it, and when to express it. But confidence is always okay. It's always okay. But you have to teach that, and it takes a confident person, and a person that's secure in themselves, to be able to transfer that and to teach it. And so, or else you're gonna learn the opposite. You're gonna learn the counterfeits. You're gonna learn the arrogance. You're gonna, um, You're gonna learn the bullying, even. So that's really, really, really key, because even as I think Rodrick alluded to or said, that whatever's in a person is gonna come out of them. You know, whatever's in a person is whatever a person, I like to say, is full of, is gonna leak from them. So if insecurity, if they're full of insecurity, then that insecurity is gonna leak, or it's just gonna burst. If oppression is if a person is full of that mindset of oppression, like you keep me pressed down, you know, and to people are really now, they're very detailed with it. If you're trying to keep me pressed down on purpose for this reason, that reason, and that reason that I can detect, oh, it's gonna burst, you know, out of them. And it's typically gonna burst in the form of rebellion. So there is I like to call a righteous rebellion, and then there's an unrighteous rebellion.
Speak on that.
We're always supposed to rebel to what's wrong. We're always supposed to reject it, and we're always supposed to hold those people accountable who align themselves up with it. That's the hard part. That's what I've been dealing with all week. And sometimes people feign ignorance, but then we also sometimes discern that it's willful ignorance. You got to be able to be delicate, you know, between the two mindsets. And so, and a lot of these people, they're adults that have been raised in a bubble. And so they actually don't know. So my thing is, we all have to humble ourselves at one point or another. And that should be something that we should practice, a life of humility. But when I say humility, I'm talking about humbling yourselves. It's a difference, because we ain't trying to be humiliated.
Okay.
And so just because somebody has been raised in a I guess an environment to where they feel like they're superior, that don't mean that you have to give them the inferior energy back. So if somebody's in error for what they're saying, like whether it's like, let's just say, for instance, like they say, hey, we want to we back our police. And guess what? I personally don't got no problem with that. I don't got no problem with that. But this is the thing I got a problem with. Are you saying that in light of what's going on? Only. The only part is key, because you got to have a balance now, because you done seen too much. You've seen too much. You've seen a knee in the neck that caused the murder with a hand in the pocket while doing it, nonchalant. So if you're not addressing that, but only addressing support for the police, what is that going to sound like to me? That's going to sound like, one, you have zero empathy, definitely at least minimum not enough empathy, and that you're extremely insensitive to what's going on to Black people in particular. Okay, you got to be held accountable for that. And I can do it in such a way that it is respectful. And I feel like we have to do it that way, because you don't want to give people the excuse. Now, I will say this, though. If people try to take the excuse, they're still going to be held accountable for the excuse. Because it's not a good reason. So that don't let you off the hook just because somebody responds to you in a negative fashion, or reacts to you and your insensitivity in a negative way. That don't let you off the hook. So
that's good.
So that's one of the things, you know, because ultimately we want to connect. We want people to see, you know, how we're feeling, and this even ties back into the household. You know, ultimately, I want to connect with my wife. Ultimately, I want to connect with our daughter, and so I sow into their love languages, and that's like another curtail, but it's like I sow into their love language account, because that's the only way that opens up their heart, opens up their ears. I
Mhm.
can sow
Yeah.
into their my love language account and pour it or try to force it on them. And it's like when I go to the bank to try to make a withdrawal, it's gonna reject.
Mm-hmm. So,
Because
Aaron, can you do me a favor before you finish this comment? I want you to be going in the vein of talking about that confidence and arrogance as it relates to being a respected husband. So you're shooting for it. If you could continue on and drive that point home, because you made a very, very good comment about that earlier.
so you're saying that the difference between confidence and arrogance? Uh,
Yes, and how that translates to being a good husband and father in your home.
okay. Well, first of all, confidence is God given. Arrogance is you given.
Mm.
So that comes strictly from you. It comes strictly from a sense of pride. So so though they're just opposite. They're just opposite, and they leak out as far as like the motives and all that kind of stuff. As far as how we incorporate that in our home, it's just taught. It's just taught. So like with our daughter, allowing her to um, ask questions. Um, Transparency breeds confidence. Um, so being transparent, being open, and being honest and truthful with yourself, that helps people. And to do it in an environment where it's no condemnation, because a lot of times people are scared, and afraid to voice their opinions or ask questions or say what's going on with them emotionally or mentally, and so they just be quiet. And like Rodrick was talking about, it gets pent up. It gets pent up. So we don't want our daughter to ever feel pent up. So the first thing I do is, and it's strategic, um, I sit her down. Like one of her love languages is physical touch. So I hug her probably 50 times a day. So that's because that's her thing, and that opens her up. So after I hug her, then I sit her down and I talk to her. Hey, what's going on with you today? How's everything going with you? Is everything okay? And then she'll tell me, yes, daddy, or whatever. And then she'll kind of go into it or whatever. And then I start to ask and engage her in questions. And so because kids aren't going to always think about that type of stuff as far as like what's going on with them in detail and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes you got to draw it out of them. So that's where those questions go. But I never barge in with the questions. I always barge in with the love language. So I barge in with the love language. Then after showing that love language, then it's okay to kind of, to have that flow of conversation as far as letting that part out. Now, obviously, with my wife, it's a lot different because she got a different love language. And on top of that, she's mature. She's older. So I can't treat her like the kid. I got to treat her like an adult. And so I go in with her with obviously her love language of just love, period, as far as with women. Ours is respect as men, but love
Mhm.
is the love language of women, the universal love language of women. And so how are you doing? Like, hey, how's your day? you know so just breaking down those, like that's like a point of stoppage to where she's gonna feel good about me inquiring about how she's doing, and then that opens up the streams of conversation, for for that. So it's like we'll do that, and then is there anything on your mind you want to talk about? you know but before you do all that, if you really really want to engage in a good conversation, I'm talking about one of those good conversations, you might have to apologize.
Yeah.
You got to wipe the account clean first and come clean, before you engage into something like in a good conversation like that. It's going to be candid, it's going to be truthful, it's going to be honest, because you got to get all the cobwebs out of the way. And so and then it's not going to be fake, and we're not good at doing fake, like around here. We're not good at it. We don't want to be good at it. We don't want to be fake professionals. We don't want none of that. So so that I would say that helps set the climate of the house when it comes to that.
That's good. You make some really good points, Aaron. This conversation is really awesome to me. But what's striking about this conversation is that you guys are talking from a very mature aspect as far as men are concerned. But I know that I've seen young men and I've counseled young men and I've been in counseling with young women who are married to young men that are coming out of their homes that don't have this particular mindset. Like they're not at this level where they understand even what, first of all, what a love language is, to even be able to entreat someone according to their love language. And so I think that that speaks to kind of what you guys were talking about before about not having a voice in the home and growing up a certain way and whatever it is that you're filled with being what leaks out. So I think that women come into marriages and relationships a little bit different. They come in a little bit more mature, not necessarily knowing, but having a better or greater concept of what it means to actually be in that connective relationship as far as intimate relationship goes. So what do you think is the difference? What happens with men that they come out of their homes not yet being in that space where they can be that respected husband yet? I think Rodrick, if you could respond to this one first, that would be exciting.
Well, again, speaking from my truth, it
Can you
really
give me just a second though? I'm so sorry.
sure.
Cuddy, and my mic was muted because we have reached our halfway segment. So we do
Oh
want to
yeah.
fill people in
Okay.
that we are on Prison Break with Shirley and Shonda. We have our special guest, Mr. Aaron Boone and Mr. Rodrick Jones, and we are discussing respected husbands. Now, the time we live in, we're throwing in a little bit extra tidbit. So if you missed us from the beginning, you need to go back onto YouTube or you need to go back onto Facebook on the Prison Break with Shirley and Shonda page, and you need to catch it from the beginning. But we are having a very open, honest, candid conversation with two great fathers, two great men, two great husbands. We are talking about respected husbands. So now, Mr. Roger Jones, you can take it away. You might want to rephrase the question, Shonda, so everyone knows.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, we're talking about this really mature conversation that you gentlemen are having about what it takes to be a respected husband and how to really engage with your family. And one of the things that I noticed in my counseling practice is that the young men that are entering into these relationships, they're not at that particular level. They don't know love languages or understand love languages. They don't really understand what it means to come into an intimate relationship. And the women that I'm seeing in counseling are a little more equipped. They come out a little bit better, a little more ready to engage in intimate relationships. So I just wanted to know what's happening with our young men that they're not coming in or coming out of their homes knowing about being a respected man. Let's forget about being a respected husband, but just being a respected man, like what it takes to really be a man in this day and age. I'm seeing that they're not yet ready for that. So what's the difference there?
So I feel like one of the fundamental differences now is that if you look at um, households in general today, as opposed to 20, 30, 40 years ago, is just the roles of husband and wife, how dynamic, how the switch that's been made there. I mean, you have more independent women now. You have more single mothers now than ever before. So there's an absentee of fathers in homes now. And so as a result, I mean, there's from my experience, I've seen a lot of kids that, who didn't have that father figure, so to speak. And so they didn't get that teaching. And so, mom is working a lot. And so that leaves, kids to get training and to get guidance from other sources, to include the biggest thing out there right now, which is the internet and Netflix and movies and social media and gaming. And so we got all these different arrays, I would call it, of input that are influencing the behavior of our children. And so as a result, when they get to the point where they want to get into a relationship, they're acting out what's been downloaded into them from all these other avenues. And so one of the most important things too is that even for us who are able to, as men who have our sons and daughters in our home, we have to be able to set their expectations, and what I mean by that is we have to be able to pour into them so that they're comfortable with who they are. And I think a lot of people are not comfortable with who they are because they've been kind of suppressed, as young men and women coming up. Meaning, again, going back to not having the voice, not being able to express who they are, and so it's like when they get to the point where they're in a relationship, now you got two people who've never really, or maybe one or the other, however it works out, whether it's one who didn't get it or maybe both of them, either or, in the relationship. Now all this stuff is coming out and nobody knows how to deal with it. Nobody now, you got to go to the pastor, you got to go to if you're fortunate enough to be under God's covering, there's just so many variables. And I think that as a father now who has a daughter in the house, it's important for me to let my daughter know her worth and to allow her to discover who she is before she ever decides to give herself to somebody else. And I think that's imperative. Now, if I could roll the tape back and bring my sons back, I would probably have a different conversation with them today than I would have had 10 years ago, because just how much the climate has changed. Because I say that because, we all grew up, I'm probably a little bit older than all of y'all, but when I grew up, the climate was the man goes out, he makes the money, he brings it home. That was back in the 70s. I was born in 1974. And so now, again, you have women who are just as successful, if not more successful than men. And so, they have a stronger mindset. And so some men can't deal with that because, they've been raised a certain way. So what I'm saying, the point I'm trying to make here is that when two people come together, you know what I'm saying, they you bring two different mindsets, right? Everything that he's been taught, everything that she's been taught, they're in a crash course with each other. And so
then the truth.
And so here's the thing. If he's never really been taught and she's never really been taught, the crash course is just a big accident. That's all it is.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. Because there's an absence of teaching. And so now they're trying to figure things out on the fly. And that's why you need a pastoral counselor like Shine the Curb to come in and kind of direct traffic, so to speak. And so I think right now, again, having a daughter in the house as a man, it's important for me to, let my daughter, encourage her to be herself, to discover who she is again before she ever gets to the point where she wants to give herself to someone else. I went to a wedding recently, rather, and the words really hit me when the scripture was read, where this man is giving his daughter away to another man. And so if you think about that, all of my life, or all of my daughter's life, rather, as a father, I'm charged with taking care of my daughter, and now I'm giving her away to another man, and that's his job. But what if he doesn't know what that job is? What if he's never been groomed to, to handle that? And there's so many situations that we see right now, where, because there's been such an absence of training, such an absence of developing, our young men to be young men, and our young women to know their worth and to be a young woman, then, we end up with a whole lot of broken marriages, a whole lot of broken people, and a whole lot of broken people who end up hurting other people. And so, I think that right now, what's important for us as husbands, and even if you're a single mom out there, you know what I'm saying, you're raising kids on your own, or single dad, there are a lot of single dads out there. So even if you are a single parent, it's important to find that time to pour into your children. And when I say pour, I mean, really teach them. So that all comes back to the first point we made when this program began, and that's having that connection with God. There's a lot of things that I wish I could do over, but when I say I wish that, I understand that everything's in God's timing, and He allowed me to go through that with a purpose, so that I would be able to share my personal testimony with somebody else. And so it's just important to have good teaching from the beginning. And even if you can't get it from the beginning, it's important to get it. So even if you didn't get it in the beginning, get it now. So it'll be a little tougher now, but they still need to be, trained. That's just my thought on that.
That's good. Shirley, did you have another question before we continue on?
Oh no, you can go ahead if you're ready.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Aaron. So the last couple of times that we talked, you told us about those um what are they called? Divine replacements that
Mm-hmm.
came into your life. And the reason why I keep bringing them up, first of all, is because I just love the phrase divine replacements. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
going to be honest with you. I just like the way it kind of rolls off the tongue. So you had these divine replacements in your life that kind of came in and stepped in where your dad was kind of unable to really come alongside you and guide you. So to get to the point where you have the mindset that you have now about what it takes to be a good husband and to learn your family's love language and to engage in them in that way. What all did it take for you to go from I think you called yourself the black sheep of the family. So to go from that to now being respected husband, what kind of shift took place and what did you have to go through and how did you get here? You're still muted, sir. Mm-mm.
Oh, wait.
Go
There
ahead.
you
There,
go. There you
there
are.
you go. Thanks. Okay. I don't push the mute button. She does. No, but, no. It's funny. It's funny you brought that up. The divine replacement because one of my divine replacements. We talked a couple days ago, I think.
Mm,
And we just talked over a Zoom, and Steve Browning. Um, I got a lot of how to be a dad and how to be a husband through watching him. And God even saw it fit to where I was able to even live with them, and I didn't even have to. It was crazy, but I'm like, I'm a grown man. I was in college and stuff, and they asked me to come live with them. I was like, wow, like I gotta think about that one, but it was so divine as far as the setup, because I got to see a godly man firsthand, um,
mm,
as far as how he treated his wife, as far as how he parented, and I want to kind of just put this in here real quick. You're not always gonna even agree with even the way even a mentor may do everything. So you're just trying to get a blueprint, some type of layout, as far as how to be effective. You may put your own twist that God gave you on it, and invite it or whatever, just your setup. And so it was good for me to be able to see that, for him. I got to see the patience that he had with his kids. I got to see his method, to see his personality inputted in, and how he went about doing things in the house. And I'm indebted to him to this day. I call him Pop to this day. And I haven't seen him in years, but we still are connected, like, so heavy. And so that's one of the ways that I was able to, be whatever who I am now, because I looked at some of the things that he inputted, as far as being a husband and a father in his house. I also wanted to kind of touch on a couple things as far as how to reach a young man. Um,
Please do.
uh, I'm gonna be honest, it's not something that's easy, and it's definitely something that you have to count the cost on, because you have to first take fractions of time and set aside time to be able to invest it, because you can't start something without finishing it with a young man, period, or with kids, period. You just can't do it. You have to know going in and roll out a set of time, whether it's once a week, once a month, once a day, whatever your fraction of time allows, and be able to roll out a plan, because you have to come down. And what I mean by coming down is, uh, you have to do things that you might not normally like that they do.
mm,
So you have to connect. You have to use the things that's distracting them to connect with them.
mm,
So, and distractions aren't always bad; they're just distractions. Um, and I would say for the most part they are, got a negative like slant to them. But for instance, like a distraction may be the video game. It may be a PS4, Xbox. A distraction may be a TV show. What am I saying? I'm saying find something that you can connect with them with. You have to go there with them and meet them there. You can't expect them to come to you. So once you do that, then that opens them up to be able to have conversation. So I try to identify different things, and as far as ways that I can connect with people, like period. And so I'm gonna be honest, like even though sometimes it's hard, but if you pay attention, like have you guys ever heard of somebody say, I don't understand women or I don't understand men? Like that's a popular phrase, right? But I'm gonna be honest, it's one of the biggest cop outs, excuses, lies, I mean, that you've ever heard. It's not that you don't understand them, it's just that you ignore them.
Oh. And you're gonna have to break that down
Keep
here,
cutting.
Mr. Aaron. Yeah, no, yeah. No, yeah, that's I see Rodrick even unmuted himself to say something on that one.
It's probably one of the most simple concepts. It's so elementary because anything that you pay attention to, you understand. It's simple. It's that simple. Anything you study, anything that you study over and over again, you begin to what? Comprehend it better, understand it better. And comprehension deals with implementation as well. So it's like as soon as you start to do that, with a particular person, first of all, what's going to trigger to them is they pay attention to me. They care enough about me and love me or both enough to pay attention to me. And so when you pay attention, you can withdraw from that account because you're paying into that account. So when it comes to a woman, if you pay attention to her, she might give you the time of the day because why? Because when she takes you to the test or puts you to the test, you're going to be able to answer those questions. Why? Because you've been studying. You've been paying attention. You can go into that test with confidence. It's real. It's so educational. It's real elementary. And it's like once you sit back and you think about it, you're like, man, all I had to do was just pay attention. Invest attention. And so you can withdraw from that account and make a good relationship happen. At minimum, it'll be at least an understanding relationship. Like I know where you're coming from, and I can see where you're coming from. So now we can connect. And I'm telling you,
The wife just chimed in. She said, "Pay attention."
She agrees.
The missus says, "Pay attention."
Yeah, people always appreciate when you're paying attention, but they also always know when you're not. And they don't take time of day at all if they know that you're not paying a lick of attention. And I'm gonna tell y'all something that it's tough for me to admit, but it's true. So my wife, she loves to laugh. Like most people do, but she loves to laugh. She loves to have fun. She got like a real vibrant personality. And one of the most irritating things in the world that she does to me is she always coming with her phone and she'll pop up this video and it's a YouTube video or something like that. And it's always like funny to her. And I'm like, man, not another video. Like,
I know exactly what you're saying.
And I'm telling you, I'm like, and so now we got like I told her, I said, I had to be honest with her and say, babe, like I'm honestly, I'm not interested in those. Like they just not that funny to me. And so I said, but I'll make a compromise with you. The video gotta be under 5 minutes. Gotta be under 5 minutes. And so all I'm saying is we negotiating. I'm basically saying, you know what? I love you enough to be able to become interested in something that you're interested in so that we can connect.
Yeah. And you're giving us pearls here, Aaron, because that's something that I think it's very small, but it's huge as far as relationship is concerned. And a lot of times when I have people that come into counseling, that's the hardest thing to get them to do is to each give a little. So if I'm the type of person that I don't like to be asked, what do you want to eat? And every time you get ready to cook, you feel like if you ask me that's pleasing me, we're already on two different pages.
Yep.
And if I don't learn to give a little and not be frustrated when you ask the question, and if that other person doesn't learn to give a little and to already have an idea in mind instead of asking me, then we're always going to be coming to the page with our frustrations on Front Street because we haven't both given a little bit in that area. Me relaxing my own needs and selfishness, and them relaxing their own insecurities and not having confidence in that particular area. And it's very, very small what it is that you're asking for us to do and saying that actually works. But it's really huge and all kinds of difficult to do when you have people who come from two different spaces, who were raised two different ways, who had two different perspectives about marriage, like what Rodrick talked about before. You know, you're coming into this marriage or this relationship, and you both have grown up and gotten information and gotten ways of dealing with each other that don't match each other. And then you're coming into this space and trying to make it work. And you're not even on the same page. And so I know that we all know that this is a Christian show. You all got the disclaimer in your emails that says that we hold the Bible as our highest authority. But this is one of the reasons why no matter what happens in life, I can't shake what I know to be true as far as the word is concerned, because it's lived. I'm seeing it lived. I'm watching it lived. And so how can two walk together except they agree? You have to be able to come into agreement with each other, even on the small things like food or a 5-minute video or what it is that I like, in order to be able to walk together with that particular person. So I thank you guys so much for what you said right there, because that was really impactful. And so if you ladies are listening out there, I love you. I do, but I need y'all to give. I need y'all to not try to have it y'all's way all the time. Okay. I need y'all to do that from y'all hearing these men talking. They telling y'all what they need. I need y'all to hear them and listen up.
That's real good. Go ahead, Rodrick. I see you about to say something.
It's like Aaron's like a fly on the wall over here, man. It's just remarkable how close that is. I think one of the key things that he said that really just kind of made me think about, my own situation was that word attention. Because when you pay attention, you show that it's important to you. And I'm guilty of that. With our lives being so busy, sometimes you could be passively listening. And then, when it's time for you to execute what may have been said, you're like, okay, what did you say again? And so one time you might get away with it, but if you constantly keep going through that, it's like you're not paying attention, and that will strain any relationship. When you feel like, again, it goes back to that point where you don't have a voice or you're not being heard. And so I just think when you pay attention to somebody, you show them that what's important to them is also important to you. And that's what gets a lot of us in trouble, is that we're not willing to kind of take that on, take that bull by the horn, so to speak. And that really strains a lot of people. Shonda also said something that I mentioned earlier, and Aaron kind of mentioned this earlier too when he talked about love languages. You'd be surprised how off we are in our communication because we don't pay attention and because we're speaking two different languages. Again, how can two people walk together unless they be agreed? Same reason why there's not two steering wheels in a car, because you'll be going in two opposite directions. You know what I'm saying? And that's what really trips a lot of us up. But, just paying attention. That's one of the things that I'm working on. And I'm going to say that with a smile on my face today, that I'm working on, as it pertains to my, I have a 5-year-old daughter, she wants attention. And so I've been guilty of saying, I don't have time right now, baby. I'll get right back to you. But I realized she doesn't want a whole lot. She just wants attention. And so even when Aaron was talking about that with his wife, my wife watches so many videos, and she'll come and she'll do the same thing. She'll put it, I want you to see this. I'm like, no, I can't do it right now. And so it's like the same thing. I did the same thing. It's got to be under a certain time limit. I can't spend 30 minutes on a video right now. But I realized that that's important to her. So today, I'm going to make an effort, because Aaron mentioned it too, that I'm going to watch these videos.
Good stuff. Helpers one to another.
Can I say?
All right now.
Can I say something real quick on that too? Because this is what helped me put that in perspective and encourage me to basically just come down and go ahead and just watch that doggone video. I had to. You gotta put regret and remorse into the equation. People don't like to live with regrets, and sometimes I have to ask myself, like, man, how would I feel if I lost her? Talking about my wife, like if I lost her, would I be more willing to watch that video? You know, my daughter, you know, I don't want to, you know, play with the Barbies and, you know, and that type of thing. And sometimes I don't even want to do the YouTube video, but it's like, what if I lost her? I mean, and what are people who deal with regrets with? You know, I lost my mom, you know, several years back, but it still seems like yesterday. And sometimes you just kind of wish that you could just have one more conversation with, you know, and it's like, so you have to, like, my father-in-law, you know, he passed several years back, and he became like a father figure to me. And sometimes I think about, man, like, I wish I could just sit on the porch, like, with him for 5 minutes, you know, and just hear his voice, hear him alive. So sometimes that kind of gets you a little bit out of the unselfish mode with your time, and invest that time, you know, with them, because it's important to them. Because it's hard living with any kind of regrets, or just wishing, you know, that longing, you know, that you wish you would have spent more time, and that type of thing. Nobody wants to have that, like, on their heart and on their conscience. So it is worth it. But let me say this though. Let me say this and lighten this thing up. You must go in negotiating. You must go in negotiating, because I'm telling you,
I'll take a note of it.
My wife, if it was up to her, it would be 2 hours. It'd be 2 hours of nothing but 5 to 10 minute videos. And I'm telling you, I'm probably gonna be like, to the point to where I'm like she knows, you got 3 tops. You got 3 tops, like back to back to back. That's and this the last one, because she always say, here, I want you to watch one more. I want you to watch one more. I'm like, nope. You all done for the day. Go ahead and save that back for tomorrow. You know, now it's time out. It's time out. So we done with that. Let's do something else. So, and guess what? It works. Like, it actually works. Like, she knows, like, hey, I done reached the limit. This man know he don't want to watch these videos, but he watched it with me. She appreciate that time. She feels appreciated. She feels loved. She feels accepted. All of that, and then boom. Now my job for that portion of it at least is done, and she's satisfied.
Doesn't it make the atmosphere so much better?
What's that?
Doesn't it make the atmosphere so much better after that happens?
Man. 5-minute video worth at least 2 hours of peace.
Yeah.
You gotta be wise. I mean, you just gotta be wise when it comes to dealing with, you know, with women and people just in general. That same principle work across the board. And trust me, it's worth it. You always gonna get back more. You always gonna get back more.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because my husband has to indulge me in that way too. Except it's not with videos. It's with other stuff. It's with little memes and stuff on Facebook or whatever, and I just shoot them to him like all day. But I noticed that I have to do that with my kids. My son is oh my gosh, he is an anime ninja warrior. And so every time I turn around, he's done combined his karate uniform into another way to look like a different ninja with a different set of powers and a different backstory and all this stuff, right? And so, like, I could be doing something like really, really important, and he'll be like, Mom, look at this. And if I don't stop and it doesn't take long, He only wants like 2.5 minutes because he wants to hurry up and go back and play. But it's super important to him right in that second. So when he comes to me and he's like, I need you to see this, I need you to see this, I need you to see this. If I can put what I'm doing down, I do. I say, okay, son, mom's right in the middle of typing. I'm going to put this down for just a minute. He's like, all right, let me just show you this one thing. And then he'll show me that one thing. And then I'll say, okay, babe, that's really awesome. I'll give him some very, very, very crucial feedback, right? Like, I don't watch half of that stuff with him, but if I ask him a question about the powers and give him an opportunity to explain that one thing, he is satisfied. He showed me his thing. He got to show off his ninja moves. Now he wants to go back and play. And he doesn't even finish his comment to me. He's running back the other way so he can hurry up and go play. But that 5 minutes was just enough for him to get out what he needed to get out. And then he leaves me alone for however much time after that. He doesn't even want to bother me anymore because he's so wrapped up in the stuff. As a matter of fact, if I try to engage him again after that, he's not going to have time for me because now he's back playing again and he doesn't want to be bothered. But I think it's funny just hearing you relate it to your spouse, because that's the way that we as women sometimes interact with our kids, especially those of us who are busy moms, who are doing more than mothering, who have other independent ventures that we're doing. We have to interact with our kids in that way. And sometimes we miss it when it comes to our spouse, but we understand it when it comes to our kids. So thank you, gentlemen, for putting that into some perspective for us. I think that we needed that. I know that you helping Rodrick on here tonight, Aaron. You said you're going to implement your new compromise, right?
Got to. I mean, I did it to an extent, but Aaron just gave me a little bit more to think about because, you know, again, we're both busy. Sometimes we're running past each other, but she's always got. When I say she's always got a video. She's got me. Yeah. She's got. Watch it. And I'm like, I'm not watching another one, but I'm not going to say that anymore. It's out of my vocabulary.
Amen.
It made me think about something though. You know, when you talk about marriage in general, I hear people talk about marriage is 50-50. Mm-hmm. I've been married 20-something years.
Mm-hmm.
Marriage
is not 100.
It's never, sometimes you got to be 101. You know what I'm saying? And and so what happens is, you know, if you think about why people split, somebody just says, I'm not giving anything else. Mm-hmm. And so when you get to the point where you're saying, I'm not giving, then you're in a dangerous place.
Yeah.
And you never want to be not. A marriage is always about give. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
You know, relationships in general are about give. Give of yourself, give of your time, give of your attention to the other person, or else it's not relationship. There's a reciprocity that has to take place in order for the relationship to be maintained. Any relationship, even if you're talking about a business relationship. Yeah. And when you're talking about business relationships, when you're dealing with high rollers, the first thing they talk about is what kind of skin do you have in the game? What do you have invested in this relationship to go back and forth? So we understand it when it comes to business, but a lot of times when it comes to our intimate relationships, we lose the mindset of how much am I investing into this relationship? We all want to look at sometimes what's being given to us. And so sometimes when people come into counseling, that's the first thing that I have to do is rearrange that mindset. Because if you're constantly looking at what the other person is not doing, then you are you have lost focus already, and you're over halfway lost this battle. It's we all have to be focused on how much it is that we are investing into whatever it is a relationship versus whatever someone else is not investing. When your focus is on what someone is not doing, you're losing.
Can I just say, when you're invested in a relationship, it's second nature. It's not something that you even think about. It's something that's a part of you. And so if you have to think about what you're going to do, then there's already a problem. You have to figure out why that is, because when you use the word organic, when we first talked about this whole process right here today, I'm talking about, something that's that's not coached or rehearsed, or it just comes with a natural flow. The same way when it comes, as a husband, for me, anything that I do for my wife, I'm not thinking about I'm doing it for my wife. I'm thinking about I'm doing it because that's what's right in my heart. That's how much I love her, and that's how much I'm willing to, to please her and go. There's no distance I wouldn't go. And I don't even think about how far it is. I mean, it has to be done. And not the fact that it even has to be done. This is something I know that's right. This is something I know she would love, and I just do it. And so I think if you move into that kind of mindset, you know, if a couple moved into that kind of mindset, what they would do for each other, it would just further help and progress your relationship.
Oh, I definitely agree. One of the things that my husband and I have a hard time with is doing things for each other. He wants to do. My husband would move heaven and earth if I said that that's what I wanted, and he wouldn't think about what it would take to do it. He would just do it. And so the same thing goes for me. And that's one of the things that we had, and we don't call it a problem. It's a good challenge, but we always end up trying to outdo each other in what we're willing to do for each other. And it's not a conscious thing. Like, I'm not thinking about, oh, he did this for me, I got to do more for him. It's just that I want to do more. And I know that he wants to do more. And when he's not allowed to do more, he's displeased. When he's not able to do things for me, he's displeased. And when I can't do things for him, I'm the same displeased. And when we met each other in that particular space, I know that we have the biggest arguments that we have are not about big stuff. The biggest arguments that we have about what we gonna eat on Wednesday night. That's the biggest thing that we have, because we have already cultivated in our relationship that I want to do for this person because I love this person. And I see that both you and Aaron have that mindset. Now, I have to be honest, I did not come into the relationship initially in that way. That was something that he taught me just by being himself. Because when I came in, I come from a very strong woman background. Like, there's mostly women in my family. I have 15 first cousins. Only like 3 of them are boys. Like, there's mostly women in my family. All of my aunties are either divorced or single, except one. My mom has 4 sisters, and they're all divorced except one. And that one, they both work really, really hard, so they don't spend a lot of time together. Like, my grandfather was really big and present in our home, but that was because he had to be, because the other husbands of his daughters were not around. So he took a bigger part with the grandchildren. But I come from really, really strong women. And so you can imagine the conversations that were had about men in that setting. So when I came into marriage, I came in with the decision that I wanted to be different, but I didn't know how. I didn't know what that looked like or where to get that from. And the Bible only goes so far in painting that picture for me. There's some details that I have to kind of fill in myself. And in doing that, I kind of learned from him and from my husband's example and from his mom's example of really what it took to be a good wife and a good mother and to meet him in that space. But I didn't have that growing up. So it took me some time to cultivate being that wanting to do more and why it's important. And so I want everyone who's listening on today to hear that if you don't know what it takes to come into this and to be a respected husband, or to allow your husband to be a respected husband, that it's something that you can learn. If you're not lost, all hope is not lost, right? And if you don't know and you don't have anybody that can be an example, and this broadcast is like making you think to yourself, okay, I need to be different, get in some prayer and allow God to change your heart concerning where you're at. I think that we're at that point, Shirley, where we kind of got to ask everybody for closing thoughts, since there's so many of us on tonight.
Yes.
Well,
So
I'm not going to start. I'm not starting.
All right. So, Mr. Aaron, give us your last commentary. You have 2 minutes to speak to our men, as far as being a respected husband. If you want to throw out any other tidbits, feel free to do so. Go ahead.
Okay. The first thing is they just popped up.
Hi, family.
Look at the Boone family. Hi.
Yes.
12 o'clock.
I would say I would say the first things first is be ready and willing to invest the time. So more than anything, it's the time that you spend with them. And I'm gonna say this too. Don't think that you have to be perfect. Don't think that you have to be perfect. It is literally impossible to be perfect when it comes to this thing. But there's nothing more solid than a timely apology, a timely moment of transparency. Sometimes, and I have to admit, there are some times to where I have had to say out the blue. She wasn't expecting it, out the blue. Hey Arvis, come here. I got something to tell you. And she like, what? What's up? She don't know what it is. And I might have to say, I haven't been spending enough time with you lately. I might have to say, I haven't been listening to you enough lately. You know, and I apologize. I'm gonna try to do better. That's it. Sometimes people just want you to acknowledge that you're off. That's it. Because if you can recognize that, man, that's half the battle right there alone. And it shows humility, and it shows that that you're in it. And sometimes that's all people want to know is, are you in
it? That's good.
You know, so I would say more than anything, just leaving with that, and just not giving up. Just constantly like rebooting yourself every day. I don't care what happened yesterday. I don't care what happened this morning, you know, but just constantly being able to kind of get back in the race. And like I said, just be willing to apologize, and just keep at it. Just keep at it.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Boone, for being a part of our discussion on today. Again, this will not be the last time. So go ahead, Mr. Rodrick Jones. You have 2 minutes. Please make it 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. Aaron just read all my homework, but I agree with every single thing he said. And I just want to add to that the accountability factor. I think what's really important for me as a man to be accountable in my home, to be accountable to my family, and to be responsible. And since I only have 2 minutes, I can't break both of those down, so I'm going to keep chopping. So just to be accountable, be responsible, and also to encourage an atmosphere of transparency, so that nobody in my house feels like they got to suppress who they are, what they feel, because I understand that suppression will cause people to be angry and depressed, and it will cause some irrational behavior. And so I would say to any man that's listening to this broadcast, you know, submit yourself to God, hear from God, and then on top of what you hear from God, apply it, walk in it, live it, because you are the example for your household. You are the example for your family. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what goes on outside of those walls, no matter what, even if your kids leave, let them know that they always have a place to come back to. And so what breaks a lot of kids, what breaks a lot of families apart is children that feel like they have no place to go. And so they turn and invest their time into other things. So I would just say, just try to nurture an atmosphere of transparency and love, and you yourself be accountable and responsible.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Rodrick Jones, for those closing remarks. And so, Shonda, you have a minute and a half.
Well, you might as well not even let me talk then, Shirley. I can't keep it to a minute. I don't have a single thought in my brain that runs under a minute and a half.
I know this is true.
You know what? I am going to not say a word about this particular piece, because I believe that our guests have covered it. I believe they've covered it with their experiences. I believe they covered it with their biblical understanding. I believe that they have really given some good tidbits tonight. So I'm just going to thank them for being a part of the broadcast. Mr. Rodrick Jones, as always, it is wonderful to be able to have a candid conversation with you. You know, you are always valued and loved. The Curbs love you, sir. So God bless you, and thank you for that. And Aaron, our new brother from another mother, man, love you, man. Thank you so much for joining in. Miss Arvis Boone, thank you so much for allowing your husband to be on this broadcast with us. You have shared him 3 times with us, and we are grateful for his input and his thoughts. And that's all I got, Shirley. I ain't got nothing else. I got a lot else, but I ain't got nothing.
I know you got a lot else. We'll talk later.
Okay.
Thank y'all so much for being tuned with us on today, as we come with Prison Break with Shirley and Shonda, special guest Mr. Aaron Boone and Mr. Rodrick Jones, as we discuss respected husbands. So you want to make sure that you go back to the beginning, watch it from beginning to end. So there were so many tidbits included in that. Next week, we'll be back with men's health with Mr. Robert Griffin. We know men's health is important, and so we need to get that out into the world. June is Men's Health Month as well. So make sure that you stay tuned to KRGN FM. The next voice you will hear are none other than Marriage Mondays with the Kings. So keep it locked on KRGN 98.5 FM, The Rock. I do want to tell you that on Tuesday on Facebook Live, we will be live there and on YouTube with a great discussion concerning our Kings. Make sure that you tune in. Y'all be blessed and keep it locked on 98.5 FM, The Rock.